Let me ask you a question. Have you ever played a video game series that you loved so much, you had such fond memories of, you couldn't get it out of your mind? Well, my friends, that's how I felt with Turok. In the late 90s, these games kicked some serious ass. They kicked more ass than you could physically imagine. In 1997, Iguana Entertainment and Acclaim Studios has unleashed their magnum opus. Turok, along with the Halo trilogy, were among my most cherished memories as a gamer. Boy, was it awesome. The series went on until 2002 with Turok Evolution, which did not sell very well, and has led to the shutdown of Iguana and Acclaim. But wait, what's this? Disney has claimed the Turok IP and has hired a new studio to make a new Turok game, set to release on 2008 for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3? Wowee! Turok is back, baby. Oh man, I can't wait to play this. Oh, I have waited far too long for this. I can no longer contain my excitement. I can no longer wait. And then the game came out. And at that moment, I couldn't help but feel animosity for this new developer, and their decision to change what I loved about the old games. Now, I know for a fact that there are people who like this game, and you know what, that's perfectly fine. I'm not making this video to try to change your opinion, I'm simply just sharing my own, just like the rest of you. And besides, I don't think this game is terrible because sometimes it gets things right, and other times it utterly drops the ball. But my biggest issue with this game is that it's barely recognizable. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that if you change that title, then nobody would think this was from the same game series, because it's simply deviated from the original games way too much. So grab your tech bow, secure your knife, and forsake your cerebral bores. It's time to talk about Turok 2008. Before we can talk about the gameplay and story, we have to address something. Turok has always had an established formula. You play as a Native American badass, defending your world from evil forces. In the first game, you played as Talset, on his quest to stop an evil warlord known as the Campaigner from ruling the universe. Now in the second game, you played as a different character, Joshua Fireseed, whose quest is to stop an alien entity known as the Primogen from escaping his prison and wiping out your world. And you go around and blast the ever-living hell out of anything that stands in your way, with some of the most badass weapons you've ever seen in a first-person shooter. That's basically the TLDR version of the formula. Simple, but effective. So, with that being said, what exactly did this game change about the formula?
Everything.
And I mean everything.
Why?
From the cool outlandish weapons to the badass enemies to the level design, they changed so much I can't help but wonder if they were making a different game at some point, but decided, you know what, let's just call it Turok. But the biggest issue is the gameplay and weapon design. Now when it comes to the story, it's not bad. I mean, it's nothing special, you've seen the story plenty of times before, but it's not bad. The biggest issue with the story is not the plot itself, but the characters. You won't know half the characters' names by the end of this game, nor will you care. But before I talk about the story, let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. Now I would like to point something out at this point of the video. Whenever I play a video game, I always pick the higher difficulties because I just find no satisfaction in beating a video game that offers me no challenge. With that being said, Turok 2008 is a very interesting shooter, I will give it that. It's quite unique for the time too. It's got some interesting mechanics like being able to dodge. Being able to dodge is nothing special nowadays, you've probably seen it a million times, but back in the day it was quite unique. The game also has some of the more common tropes that you've seen back in the day. Regenerating health, aiming down sights, dual-wielding weapons. But dual-wielding is interesting in this game because you don't just dual-wield the same weapon. You can dual-wield different kinds of weapons, so you can have a pistol in one hand and an SMG in the other. You can't dual-wield every weapon in the game, unfortunately, but there's a good amount that you can. You can make some pretty interesting combinations. You also have 4 weapon slots. 2 of them are reserved for your knife and your bow. These serve as your core weapons and are mostly going to be used for stealth kills. Now the dodge mechanic is situational, but it can be very, very handy, allowing you to dodge grenades and powerful attacks. Alright, let's discuss the enemies. Your most common enemy are the MG soldiers, which come in a variety of armors depending on the weapon they're using, so you can immediately tell what weapon a soldier has by looking at them, which I always thought was pretty cool. Visual variety is always good. You fight dinosaurs as well, obviously, including raptors, which are the most common. You then are introduced to the spitters, which are raptors that can spit poison at you. You fight these guys, which the game likes to call mini-raptors. The Lophosaurus, which serve as mini-bosses, and of course the iconic T-Rex himself. Like, we talk about the dinosaur models because damn do they look good. even to this very day, especially the raptors, which look, sound, and just animate beautifully. So there's a good amount of enemies, yet I still feel unthrilled when I fight them. Why is that? Well, because aside from the scorpions, the enemies in this game are just, well, kinda basic. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at a few enemies from the original games, shall we? You start things off fighting raptors and humans. You fight priests that can launch fireballs at you. You fight the mighty Perlin, which are giant ape-like creatures that can soak a lot of hit and move slow. But let one get close and they can send you flying off a cliff. There's also a different variant of the Perlin that carries a wrist gun, allowing it to launch fireballs at you. These guys are mostly stationary and are guarding loot for the most part. You fight the inhabitants of the Lost Land, which are humanoids that can launch projectiles at you. You fight the same raptors, only this time they are cybernetically enhanced, with laser blasters for arms. You fight humans riding on triceratops with mounted missile launchers. That was all in the first game. Let's discuss the second game. In the second game, the very first enemy that you fight is the Dinosaurs, an army of genetically engineered dinosaur hybrids. Consisting of the Raptoids, which specialize in melee attacks. These guys are quick, nimble, and are surprisingly good at dodging your bullets. Joining them are the Entrails. These guys are the commanding unit of the army. They shoot projectiles, throw grenades, will melee at you if you get closer. Then you fight the Mantids, a species of intelligent yet merciless insects which exist only to further their own existence, and they see Earth as a potential planet to infest. What I have just shown you is only a few of the enemies in the original two games. Unlike Turok 2008, the enemies in the old games are, well, they're memorable, they're interesting, and fighting them leaves an impression on you, which is more than what I can say for the enemies in Turok 2008. For the most part, at least. But also, due to awful design choices, the fun in fighting the enemies here is just inconsistent. Let's discuss the soldiers first. Whenever a soldier lands a hit on you, it throws your aim off. This can make using the bow and sniper rifle very frustrating. It's like trying to pour water on a drunk person's mouth while they're spinning around. Another big issue is grenades. When soldiers throw grenades in this game, there's no visual indication and barely any audio indication. They do have a voice line for it, but you don't always hear them, and even when you do, the grenade travels so fast it's already under your feet when you hear it. And even if you survive, it knocks you out of cover, leaving you open for damage.
What? What the fuck?
And then there's the inconsistent accuracy. Sometimes, soldiers are so inaccurate that it's completely funny to look at. And sometimes, they are so goddamn accurate, they can kill you in under a second. It's ridiculous. And then you reach the halfway point of the game, where you're going to be fighting a lot of these assholes with pulse rifles. These guys are so tanky they can survive a grenade explosion, and all of them can kill you in under a second, which means you have to constantly take things slow. You can't dual wield and run and gun, because at this point in the game, you are far too damn weak, that the only approach is constant cover. Scientifically speaking, what is this game exactly trying to convey? That Turok in this game is such a huge wimp that he has to never stick his head out? Dying in under a second, unpredictable grenades, and constantly shooting everything from a range. These are soldier encounters in a nutshell. So now it's time to talk about the dinosaurs, and boy do I have a lot to say. Let's start with the absolute worst mechanic in the game, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to talk about dino mauling. Basically, when a dinosaur or those scorpion things attack you, they can knock you on the ground and you have to mash buttons on screen to get them off you. I mean, nothing is more intense, more climactic, and more exciting than when control is taken away from you and you have to mash buttons like an absolute monkey. But by far the absolute worst part about this mechanic is that you can never tell when it's going to happen. A dinosaur can just initiate the sequence whenever they damn please, and interrupt the flow of combat. There's no rules. And even worse, you can take damage during this sequence. Yes, you can literally die during this garbage. Oh, but it gets worse. There's no cooldown. So after you're done, another one can just come in immediately and have its turn with you. I can't even laugh the pain away anymore from watching the same raptor pinning me down multiple times in a row. Do I need to say anything? Have I showed enough clips? I think this clip right here speaks for itself. This has to be one of the worst mechanics ever implemented in a shooter. You'd have more fun 69ing a great white than constantly deal with this shit. You get more comfort regurgitating a medieval flail. Fuck this mechanic. And finally, there's the knockdown mechanic. When you get hit by a specific attack like a grenade explosion, or if a raptor attacks you, or just about anything from a T-Rex, you get knocked on your ass. Once again, taking control away from the player and leaving them vulnerable. Because nothing speaks fun more than when you're trying to snipe soldiers, you're minding your own business, and a raptor sneaks up behind you and knocks your ass off a cliff. Once again, ruining the flow of combat. And just like dino mauling, there's no telling when this is going to happen. It's completely unpredictable, unless you're fighting the T-Rex. And when you do fight the T-Rex, you get moments like this. Roll the clip. The saddest thing about these mechanics is that if they were implemented a lot better, they could have made for cool and intense moments. But instead, they make the game more frustrating, and even though they don't always happen, they occur often enough to make you go,
bullshit. What a load of fucking bullshit. How did they fuck this up so bad?
And then there's the more universal problems. This game has one of my least favorite things about games with regenerating health, where the screen gets blurrier. Because, yeah, apparently the more injured you get, the more worse your vision gets. This problem isn't exclusive to this game, it's just a pet peeve of mine. That being said, it can be worse in this game sometimes where the frame rate drops. Thankfully though, that does not happen often. And then there's the screen shaking, and they got really carried away with the screen shaking. The screen shakes when a grenade explodes, when you fire your weapon, when a tremor occurs, when you get hit. There is so much damn screen shaking, you'd have a more smoother experience playing a game while standing on one hand while an earthquake is erupting under your house. Alright, so now it's time to discuss the level design, which is another thing that the original games were known for. The levels in Turok 1 and 2 were like a maze. In Turok 1, you had to constantly take different pathways within the next level in search of keys that allowed you to access the next level. But you were also on the lookout for hidden pathways containing secrets like weapons and ammo. In Turok 2, however, the levels were more expansive, and you had other objectives to do aside from the keys. You do thankfully have a map system, which helps you to not get lost all the time, though it can be easy to get lost if you're playing the game for the first time. So, does Turok 2008 improve upon this formula in any way at all?
No.
The level design is a complete joke. I am truly stunned. Instead of creating levels with a different aesthetic and unique objectives, the levels all play out the same way. Walk down a linear path from point A to point B, and you do this in 3 different aesthetics. But once you've seen one of them, you've seen the rest. Let's discuss them, shall we? Jungle environments, which are admittedly impressive to look at for the time, but don't do a good job of standing out from each other. Caves that have lights in them in a piss-poor attempt at environmental storytelling. And finally the military bases, which are so boring to look at, it becomes kind of funny. It gets even weirder when they give you the option of going left or right, but it doesn't matter, it's just a placebo effect. Like look here, I go to the right and I find a downed chopper. What happens if I go to the left? Well, would you look at that? The exact same chopper. What about this right here? On the left I can use that downed tree trunk to cross the chasm. But I can go to the right, and wouldn't you know, it takes you down the same path. Hey, anybody remembers the start of River of Souls from Turok 2, where you rode a goddamn Styracosaurus that's armed to the goddamn beak? How you charge through enemies and send them flying while watching them flee in terror. How you blew anything else on your path with double-barreled artillery cannons. Turok 2008 has nothing like that. Especially in that part where you encounter the spider tank, an absolute beast of a machine. Only you don't get to drive it. Nope, they just fucking tease you with it. And remember the portals from the first game? You enter one and are introduced to some sort of trial minigame, which was optional, but if you finish it, you're rewarded with weapons, ammo, health pickups, and power-ups. They're easy at first. Later on though, they become a lot more unforgiving. Like this one, where the floor is literally lava. Alright, let's move to the most exciting part of Turok, the weapons. Probably the most exciting part of all the classic games. Turok has always been remembered fondly for its iconic weapons. Doom may have the plasma rifle and BFG, but Turok has more than half of its arsenal. What can I say? It's just fucking glorious. But even weapons like the charge dart rifle, which are non-lethal, are still interesting. You stun an enemy, you pull out your warblade, and slice their goddamn heads off. I love that shit. But we can't talk about Turok weapons without mentioning our Lord and Savior. the cerebral bore. So needless to say, the weapons are awesome. So awesome, in fact, that if someone made a top 10 weapons list, Turok 2 is guaranteed to be up there. If they played the game, of course. So now we arrive at the weapons of Turok 2008. Now, as mentioned earlier, you have 4 weapon slots. 2 of them are occupied by your knife and your bow. Also, as mentioned earlier, these are mostly going to be used for stealth kills. Though you don't have to use them for stealth, you can just use them in a straight-on fight. One cool detail about the bow is that if you let go of the trigger very gradually, Turok will stop pulling on the arrow. If you approach someone with your knife pulled out, you get an insta-kill animation. And I gotta be honest, they got pretty creative with these animations. But my favorite one is this one, where he picks them up by the neck and slits their throat. So yeah, needless to say, the core weapons are pretty cool. The bow and knife are just awesome. But what about the guns? The guns have to be just as interesting, right? No! Unfortunately, just like the enemies, the guns have taken a complete nosedive as well. Instead of outlandish weapons, we have shotguns, flamethrowers, sniper rifles, pistols, SMGs. You get the idea. There are only 2 unique weapons in the game. One of them is the pulse rifle, a returning weapon from Turok 1. And it looks pretty good. It sounds pretty nice too. But they couldn't help themselves. They just had to ruin it somehow, by giving it an overheat mechanic. One of the only 2 weapons in the game, and you ruin it with an overheat mechanic. But by far the coolest and most inventive weapon in the game is the sticky bomb launcher. As the name suggests, it fires sticky bombs, which you can detonate at any point, by pressing the right trigger again. But you don't just stick it to live targets. You can stick it on the ground, you can stick it on the walls, on the ceiling, you can set up traps with this thing. Really cool weapon. That is until you reach the halfway point of the game, where soldiers are so goddamn tanky they can survive an explosion, even when you directly stick it. Apparently ruining the pulse rifle wasn't enough. Now let's ruin the only inventive weapon in the game. Thanks. The guns in this game also have alternate firing modes, which is pretty cool. That's something that I think shooters should do more often. Unfortunately, the first gun that you get, the SMG, has a silencer. You would think that's good, but you had no reason to use it because the bow exists. The bow silences your footsteps as well. Yeah, because that makes sense. Next time I go hunting, I'm gonna equip a bow instead of a gun. See how that works out. What about the shotgun? It makes a very strong first impression, and the introduction's pretty cool. You find it in a cave, fighting off raptors. But it is made completely obsolete in the very next level because you get the best gun in the game, the pulse rifle. The pulse rifle in this game is so accurate, it has such high damage output that it can even outperform the sniper rifle. Once you get the pulse rifle, you barely have a reason to use anything else. Speaking of which, the first gun that you get is an SMG. What gun do you think the game gives you next? Just take a guess. You think a shotgun? No, it gives you a pistol. Why would you give me a pistol after you've already given me an SMG? What the hell's the point? But the biggest issue for me personally is the lack of the over-the-top violence. In the old games, even rudimentary weapons like the pistol and the shotgun were more satisfying to use. And it was all because of the sound design and the over-the-top violence. But at least you can blow dinosaurs to bits. It's not all bad though. The minigun has a pretty cool alternate use, where you deploy it on the ground and it acts like a sentry gun, which is pretty badass. It's mostly useful against hostile wildlife, but pretty cool nonetheless. And later down the line you get access to tech arrows, aka explosive arrows. These aren't very common, but goddamn they're awesome. Nothing makes you feel like quite the badass than when you shoot an explosive arrow in the middle of a squad of soldiers and watch them fly. But by far my favorite thing about the bow is when you pin a soldier to a wall with a fully charged arrow. The sticky bomb launcher's alternate fire fires what seems to be some sort of adhesive, and if the enemies step on it, it blows up, which is also pretty damn cool. The shotgun, on the other hand, has a flare launcher that can be used to distract raptors. But one thing that's also pretty cool is that you can actually stick the flare on live targets. And there's just something so entertaining about sticking a flare on a raptor and watch the others just gang up on him. It never gets old. But if you don't feel like waiting, you can just pick them off one by one. Also, the reloads sound and look pretty good too. Also, the flamethrower's introduction is excellent. Fending off the scorpions while you light up the cave as you spray them with a stream of flames is just very atmospheric. These are moments that give the weapons some bright spots. Alright, so we've talked about game design, level design, and the guns. Now it's time to discuss the story. Now, I said that the story wasn't terrible. Unfortunately, however, its problems are immediately obvious within the intro. It starts off with a lot of mystery. A group of highly trained soldiers infiltrate a settlement and kill everyone. With silence and efficiency, I might add. Turns out the first cutscene was actually a dream. Now in the real opening, that is totally not ripping off Alien, we get introduced to our main character, Soap McTavish, Turok. Now it's at this point that I should probably mention, Turok isn't exactly a character, it's more of a mantle that's been handed down to certain individuals who met some sort of criteria. As stated before, in Turok 1 and Evolution he played as Telset, and Turok 2 and 3 he played as Joshua Fireseed. In this game, that's his actual name. Yeah, Joseph Turok to be more precise. Also, remember when I said that they changed everything? Well, it's not entirely true. They did keep two things: a Native American protagonist and dinosaurs. Turns out Joseph Turok is part of Whiskey Company, a group of space marines that give off the same vibe as the Colonial Marines from Aliens. You know, the homies type. But unlike the Colonial Marines, these guys are just mostly cardboard cutouts for the most part. Turok is more of an outcast in this group. He enlisted at the last minute, and because of that none of the crew knows who he is or doesn't even trust him. You can kind of see this in the introduction scene.
Hey, who's he?
Hell if I know. Somebody get a bucket and mop. We got a new cleaner on board.
And immediately after that, the problems with the story begin to be clear.
Our target is Roland Kane, leader of the legendary Wolf Pack. 3 years ago, Kane went AWOL. No one's seen or heard from him since. We've tracked him down to the colony on the planet below.
Wait, time out. I have a few questions. Number 1, who the hell are the rest of these guys? Number 2, who are Wolfpack and what makes them so legendary? Number 3, why did Kane go AWOL? And number 4, why are we trying to bring back Kane? What exactly did he do? 5 minutes. I am 5 minutes into the story, and already I am super confused. This is the biggest issue with this game's story, the characters, and their lack of motivation. But you don't need any depth or motivation with the characters as long as they're likable. And unfortunately, we don't get a chance to know any of them, because the introduction scene only tells you what you're doing and who the bad guy is. There are only 2 exceptions though, and it's these 2 characters, Joseph Turok and Slade. We learn in the intro that Turok used to be a former member of Wolfpack.
Turok's here to help us track Kane down. He's a former member of Wolfpack.
Yeah, before he screwed him over.
Slade, can it?
He can't be trusted.
Alright, meeting's over. Let's get ready to roll.
Whenever Turok and Slade seem to interact with each other, Slade always shows hostility towards Turok. The reason for this is that when Turok abandoned Wolfpack, it was during a mission in Colombia. The rest of his unit died on a mission, One of them happened to be Slade's brother, Robert Slade. As a result, Slade has nothing but absolute disdain for both Turok and Kane.
No, scratch that. You're no friend. You're a goddamn traitor.
If I was a traitor, you'd already be dead.
If you're not a traitor, then why'd you abandon your unit in Colombia?
You weren't there. You wouldn't understand.
My brother was there. Yeah, that's right. Robert Slade. Ring a bell? He died on that mission. Not like you. You turned and ran.
Your beef should be with Kane. He's the reason your brother's dead.
My beef is with both of you.
Though I might be a little bit biased, because he is voiced by Ron Perlman, who does an excellent job voicing him.
I'm guessing they're Kane's men, coming to make sure we're all dead. Surprise! Let's go get these guys.
I would say something about the rest of the characters, but there's really nothing to say about them. The game simply doesn't take the time to flesh out the characters and make us care for them, and that's the biggest problem. Oh wow, look at that. We're giving a walkthrough on the weapons by this guy Logan. Oh man, I can't wait to learn about him. I can't wait. Nope! Missile strike.
All hands, brace for impact. Incoming missile, brace for impact.
One thing I will say is that the setup for the story is pretty cool. Your ship gets shot down and you land on an unknown planet. Especially when you get that true reveal. You walk over to this ravine, a pterodactyl flies right past you. You see a brachiosaurus over there grazing in the distance. This reveal still holds up to this very day. Throughout the story, Turok gets these flashbacks of his time when he was a member of Wolfpack. Turns out Kane took him under his wing and trained him about his heritage. I like these flashbacks quite a lot because they give him a lot of development as this Native American who's honed the skills of his ancestors. So now it's up to you and Slade to reunite with the rest of your crew. Eventually, you have to cross a bridge that's across the valley. But in order to do so, you have to go through a base. And Slade suggests that they both split up as soon as they reach the base. Because apparently two guys splitting up in an enemy base is a good idea.
Cover more ground if we split up.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Unfortunately, the bridge is out, so you must continue on foot with Slade. It's here that you're interrupted by your first giant predatory dinosaur, the mighty Giganotosaurus, and you don't get to kill it.
What?
Nope. Instead, you have to avoid it and escape from it. The first giant predatory dinosaur, and we don't even get to kill it. But it's actually a lot more stranger than that. Before the game came out, the Giganotosaurus had a lot of screen time during the promotion of this game. Even more so than the T-Rex. Hell, they even had this guy show up at the end of the trailer.
Turok.
It made it seem like this guy was going to have his own boss battle. The screenshot you're looking at right now is the original design before the game was released. This actually looks a lot like the real-life counterpart. Which begs the question, why did they change his design? And more importantly, why so much hype for a dinosaur that we don't even get to kill? Eventually you reach the main crash site where the rest of your crew is located. Unsurprisingly, they're not doing so well. Since they're low on ammo and supplies, they abandon the mission and are now simply just trying to survive. Outgunned and outnumbered, your superior Cole tasks you with finding a communications unit to send an SOS, but Turok hesitates because he wants to go after Kane.
Turok, I want us off this goddamn planet ASAP.
What about Kane?
Forget Kane. We're in survival mode. I need you to search the surrounding area for the ship's long-range comms so we can call in an extraction.
I'm on it.
But after an unsuccessful search, you're ordered to continue searching with the help of two fellow soldiers. Alright, now this looks like a good opportunity for us to get to know the characters. Or, I guess not. Let's just kill them off, because who the fuck gives a shit about characters anymore, am I right? Anyway, after whoever the fuck his name was gets quickscoped, you have to take out the snipers in the outpost and clear it out to search for the comm unit. Unsurprisingly, it's not there, but you do find a new crash site. It's here where your search finally ends. And before we continue, I just want to say, this next cutscene, I don't know why, but for some reason, it always makes me laugh. I don't know what's funnier. This shot right here where he looks so happy, only for the camera to pan to the right and showing the T-Rex's face, and then it grabs him by the leg and just runs off. Or maybe it's the fact that a 60+ foot T-Rex managed to sneak up on this guy. And I say sneaking with quotations because it wasn't really sneaking. You can literally hear this thing's footsteps way before it even arrives. But uh-oh, looks like your comrade Gonzalez still has the comm unit in his hand. So, you go after the T-Rex to retrieve it. At this point, you're probably wondering, why didn't the T-Rex just eat him? And I'm not gonna lie, I love how they reveal this. You make your way down the path towards the T-Rex, and you find a nest with juvenile Rexes roaming around. Yep, homeboy Gonzalez was turned into baby food. And I love this because you don't need any dialogue to know what happened. You fill in the blanks yourself. After you deal with the babies, it's time for one final showdown with Mama Scarface.
Cole, I've got the comm unit.
After all this time, finally you get to fight the Tyrannosaurus. You've been teased from the beginning and finally you get to fight Big Mama Scarface herself. And I have to say, dear Lord, this boss fight sucks. Here's how it works. If you fight this thing head on, it's not gonna end well for you. This thing runs nearly twice as fast as you do, and it bum rushes you immediately from the beginning and knocks you down with every hit. And if you get knocked down too many times, guess what? It gobbles you up. And this happens every single time. Now you might be thinking, but why don't you use the dodge mechanic? Oh, you sweet summer child. I don't know if this is intentional, but if you use the dodge mechanic too many times against the T-Rex, this is what happens. Yep, that's right. If you dodge too many times against the T-Rex, you just die. So here's how you do it. You see that tree in the middle? You're supposed to run and hide under it and shoot the T-Rex from under there. Once you're under the tree, the T-Rex will sometimes stick its head in and try to bite you. But unless you try, you will never die as long as you're under the tree. Let me get this straight. You're telling me that if I try to fight the T-Rex in a head-on fight, and I utilize the dodge mechanic, I get punished for that? This is it. This is the best that you could come up with. Boy, I'm at the edge of my seat right now. This is very exciting. But you want to know what really pinches my nutsack about this fight? In the original game, you also get to fight a T-Rex. Oh, but you don't get to fight a normal T-Rex. Oh, no. You get to fight a cybernetically enhanced T-Rex that can stomp the ground and cause shockwaves, breathes fire, and shoots laser beams from its robotic eye. How do you take a boss fight as badass and batshit crazy as that and turn it into this?
What? How can you do this?
So anyway, after shooting this thing for a while, it finally falls to its side and you walk up towards it with your knife to finish it off. Unfortunately, our hero gets knocked out, but as he wakes up, his mission now is to return to his team. At this point, I'm not even going to ask how he still has the comm unit with him, and to be honest, I don't care. You go to your superior Cole to fill him in on the details, but he gets taken out by an arrow. What's that? Oh, a member of Wolfpack. Finally, we get to see what they're made of. No, of course you don't fight Wolfpack. Nah. You fight more soldiers. Come on, bro, that was it. The atmosphere was perfect. This was the perfect opportunity to show us what made these guys so legendary. Speaking of which, I had forgotten that Kane was even in the story. We never see this guy at any point in the story unless it's a flashback or in old video recordings. He only makes his true appearance at the very end of the game and kills one of your comrades. But aside from that, what does he do? Nothing. Instead of actually taking matters into his own hands, he keeps sending his cronies after you, until you finally get to fight him as a boss battle. Oh, did I say boss battle? I wish. No. Instead, It's a fucking QTE sequence. Now, I will say this QTE sequence is pretty cool because it showcases how skilled both of them are with a knife. Throughout the story, there's been so much emphasis put on the knife.
This is the most effective and dependable means of killing your enemy. It kills quietly and instantly, preventing your enemy from raising the alarm. Now, try it on me. Do it. You'll never be that good. Congratulations, Turok. You're now a member of Wolfpack.
And even when you do kill him, you don't feel accomplished, you feel no satisfaction, because you're not given a reason to wish for Kane's downfall. At some point in the story, you learn that the reason why there's dinosaurs roaming about is because Kane's scientists have terraformed the planet. Why they terraformed the planet? I don't know. You're never told why. And later on, you learn that the giant scorpions are the only native species on the planet, and Kane had his scientists bring in corpses and extract toxins from their bodies to turn it into the perfect bioweapon. What he plans on doing with it? We don't know. We are never told why. We also learn that Kane is taking orders from an unknown organization he calls corporate. Yes, that is literally what he calls them.
Kane to corporate. Here is what we know.
Now, the whole point of the story is that Turok wants to bring Kane down because he lied to him about his mission. What's the mission? I don't fucking know. Turok is just pissed off at Kane because it turned out the people he killed in that first cutscene were innocents.
Looks like the cartel cleaned this place out weeks ago.
Damn it. Congratulations, Turok. That was a perfect strike. Unfortunately, these aren't the targets, but we'll find them. Even if we have to kill every goddamn peasant in this backward country.
But I will not tell you who these targets are, or why I had you kill innocents. That's for you to know. He then orders Turok to finish the job. But Turok does not want to, because killing innocents is not the way of his people. So in response, Kane pulls out a gun and shoots her. And when you finally confront Kane, Turok asks him why he ordered him to kill innocents. And this is his response.
Heritage. You don't know anything about my heritage. If you did, you wouldn't have ordered me to kill innocent civilians. That's not the way of my people.
I had orders and I followed them. That's the way of my people. We respect the chain of command, but you let emotion cloud your judgment.
You serious?
So all this time, this guy did what he did. Extracted toxins, terraformed the planet, killed innocents, and tricked Turok into killing innocents. Why? Because he respects the chain of command. In other words, he just does what he does because he's told to. No reason and no motivation. That's what's missing here, people. Anyway, before I skip to the actual ending of the game, I want to talk about one final mission because it's actually worth mentioning. So after you survive the ambush from the MG soldiers, your chances of survival are brought down immensely. The communications unit is destroyed, and no commanding officers are left. Slade attempts to take control of whatever is left of the unit, because he claims that no one outranks him. But it turns out that this guy Logan actually does outrank him. And while Slade doesn't agree, he doesn't really have much choice in the matter. While Logan was coming up with a plan, an argument heats up between the crew, but it's interrupted by something shrieking in the distance, which, I will admit, sounded pretty creepy.
Why are we just standing here? Let's hunt those bastards down.
Jericho, wait.
They killed our guys.
It's getting dark out. Let's wait until morning, okay?
Please go now. All right, fine. Let's wait till morning.
We're totally screwed.
Okay, so here's a question for you. You're the leader of a crew on an unknown planet that you don't know anything about, and you hear something that sounds as unnatural as that. What do? You would probably leave whatever the hell that is alone, right? Well, here's what Logan suggests.
Slade, I've got a job for you.
Take Turok and go find out what's making that noise.
What? Why in fuck's name would you ever want to know what made that noise?
Are you dumb?
And because the other characters are pieces of cardboard, nobody even tries to put up a fight with them. Alright, whatever. At least the level setup's pretty cool. See that light over there? Yeah, that's the same light that you saw over there at the top right. And now you get to find out what happened. It turned out it was an APC, and something pulled it underground. You don't know what yet, but you are about to find out. As our heroes enter the facility, they check out the terminals for any info, and find out about an abandoned substation with a ship in the hangar. As Turok contacts Logan to fill him in, they hear something banging on the doors.
You're shitting me. Send me the coordinates.
What the hell is that? Spread out and cover that door. Something wants in.
It's here where you're introduced to the giant scorpions, the native species of the planet. So you fight your way towards a ladder, you climb up and see a chopper in the distance. Time to get the hell out of here.
Run for it!
So after that fall, you eventually wake up and find out that Slade is nowhere to be seen. It seems that he's abandoned you and forsook his flamethrower. I like this quite a lot because Slade always gave Turok shit for abandoning his brother, and now he's done the same. Oh, the irony. So now you're tasked with finding Slade and getting out of here alive. So this is the level that I want to talk about before I skip to the ending. To this very day, I still can't decide whether I hate this level or like it. It's an absolute roller coaster of emotions. This is the level that introduces the flamethrower. I already talked about how beautiful its introduction is, but at the same time, this level also sucks balls. And no, it's not because of the layout and it's not because of the difficulty, it's because of that goddamn screen shaking. Holy shit, the screen shaking in this level is unreal. You can't scratch your ass without the screen shaking as if a nuke went off near your house. And it's like, normally the screen shaking is garbage in this game, but fuck me, man, this level is just so full of it. I had to take a break from playing because I felt dizzy halfway through. Sometimes you come across a blocked path where you have to spray the lava in the ground with fire when you see steam coming out of the cracks. This makes it erupt and open a path for you. But you can also use them to jib the scorpions, which can be pretty handy. But every time you do that, the screen shakes so much it's ridiculous. And sometimes there's tremors that occur which also cause screen shaking. And even when the scorpions come out from underground, that also causes screen shaking. On one hand, I like how atmospheric this level is. On the other hand, I'd rather play Elden Ring on a PSP than deal with this shit. I'd rather do Lair the Blind Ones on repeat for a week. I'd rather shit a war club out of my ass than play this level. But you know what? It's not all bad. There's always one thing that I always look forward to when I do this level, and that's the boss fight. Yep, this level has a boss fight, and although it's not hard, it's at least very well designed. Finally, you reunite with Slade, but something seems to have him spooked. Now, I wonder what could possibly have him—
What the fuck is that? What the f—
Holy shit, that thing is massive. This is it. The cave boss fight. A giant sea serpent with tentacles. And what a spectacle of a boss fight it is. So let's break it down. The fight has multiple phases. The first phase, this thing will lunge and try to bite you. You can't damage it directly. You have to use the lava cracks and erupt them using the flamethrower as it lunges at you. Do this enough times and it dies. But every time you do damage it, it will descend back into the depths and ascend once again. Now it's going to start using its tentacles, and every phase has its pattern. In the beginning it either swipes with its tentacles and you have to jump over them, or it grabs rocks and tosses them at you, dealing massive damage. Whether it lunges to bite you or it tosses rocks at you, you have to utilize the dodge mechanic. And get this, you can actually dodge in this fight without the game punishing you, unlike in the T-Rex fight, where dodging too many times gets you killed, despite the fact that you didn't get hit once. Holy shit, it's a revelation. Anyway, as soon as this thing is at low health, then the most dangerous phase begins, where it grabs rock pillars from the ceiling. These are very lethal and a direct hit can kill you, so keep strafing to one direction, time your dodge. After finally bringing down the beast, it's at this point where Slade finally begins to trust Turok because he didn't abandon him. He also develops a modicum of respect for him, even though he probably wouldn't like to admit it.
Better go find the coward who dropped this.
Don't tell anyone about that.
So here it is, the home stretch. Well, not really. When you reach the ship, Turok decides to stay because he wants to stop Kane.
We're going home.
Come on, let's go.
I'm staying. I have to stop Kane. I can't let him get away.
We have to go, guys, now!
Go get him.
Or, instead of going alone, he could just board the ship and use the ship's guns to fly over there and destroy him. Kinda redundant to go solo, but whatever. So Turok finally reaches Kane, but uh-oh, he's already on board a battleship. If only he used the other ship to get there faster, we wouldn't have to deal with this crap.
Christ, why didn't I think of that?
So now you're supposed to take this thing out using a bunch of missile turrets. However, I say fuck that, pull out your sticky bomb and tech arrows instead of going out in the open and risk dying. But it's not over yet. After you bring down the ship, Kane is still alive, and you have to do that stupid QTE sequence. As if the game needs any more of those. Finally, you take down the bad guy Kane, and that's the end of Turok 2008, and... No, it's not the end. You still have one boss battle left. I want you to just take a guess. Take a guess what boss they throw at you. Just take a wild guess. Are you fucking kidding me? 3 boss fights. 3 boss fights and one of them is a reused fight. You know what? I don't even care anymore. All I will say is that on the higher difficulty, this boss fight takes way longer than it has any reason to. So here's what you do. Grab the shotgun and keep using the flare launcher to distract her. And keep distracting her with the flare launcher until you find the pulse rifle. For some reason, the pulse rifle deals more damage on the T-Rex than any other weapon. Anyway, you keep doing a ring around the Rosie on this box, keep using the shotgun to distract her, while simultaneously shooting at her with a pulse rifle. Until she finally dies, and this time you kill her for real. And I'll give the game this, even though I fucking hate this boss fight, the ending is pretty damn badass. But of course, Slade would not abandon you. Once again, could have used that damn ship to help with the T-Rex, but whatever. And that was Turok. Or so they tell you. You wouldn't know from playing the game. At the end of the day, my final conclusion for this game is that for the most part, it's extremely generic. Like I said, there are things that I like about this game. Unfortunately, the story elements, the level design, and the boring weapon selection turns what could have been a decent shooter to just another generic late 2000s shooter. But the biggest issue is the gameplay. This game simply changed the formula way too much. Yeah, it may have dinosaurs, but dinosaurs weren't the defining factor of the original Turok games. And this game plays nothing like a Turok game. But Turok game or not, it's just one mess of a game. Now I would say that this is where the story ends, but it actually gets a lot more interesting than this. When this game came out, reviews and responses for it were pretty mixed to say the least. Despite that though, this game sold 1 million units in 2 months. So Propaganda Games actually planned a sequel, but unfortunately the sequel got cancelled due to too many layoffs. At that point, Disney wanted nothing more to do with the gaming industry, and completely pulled off. There isn't any gameplay footage of the sequel, but we do have some concept art. It seemed that the sequel is going to take place in a desert-like environment. According to Propaganda Games, they said it was going to have a Mad Max meets Jurassic Park type of feel. They also showed some of the enemies, and I gotta say, they look really damn cool. These look like enemies that you'd actually see in the old games. The dinosaurs also look pretty cool, like this desert T-Rex. There's also a desert raptor, and there's also a feathered raptor. And my personal favorite, the swamp raptor. Like, holy shit, the enemies actually look really damn cool. Turok especially looks really damn cool. At least I think that's him. He's got arrows on his back. It's gotta be Turok. And it looks like they wanted to go crazy with the weapons, as in one of the concept arts there's this giant laser cannon thing. And this space assault rifle with a bayonet attached to it. Looks fucking awesome. And speaking of crazy weapons, allow me to introduce you to the Jack. Supposedly, this thing was going to be the spiritual successor to the cerebral bore. But unlike the cerebral bore, it had an alternate firing mode, where it fired a probe that would attach itself to a dinosaur's brain and allowed you to control the dinosaurs. Yes, you were going to be able to control the dinosaurs. And if you want proof, this screenshot right here is from the cancelled sequel. It's the pause menu, and look there in the controls section. Dinosaur and Turok. Being able to control the dinosaurs with the Jack? That sounds like a really cool idea. I mean, holy shit, dude, like, this sounds like a Turok game. It sounds like they were finally going back to the franchise's roots. It's a real shame that Disney pulled the plug halfway into development. I'm really curious to know what the final game would have been like. I'm pretty sure it would have kept some elements from the 2008 game, but it looked like they were finally going wild with ideas. Unfortunately, after Disney pulled away from the gaming industry, the Turok IP is now in a weird place, as it is currently owned by Universal Interactive Studios, who pitches the IP to anyone that has ideas with it. This is how the remasters for Turok 1 and 2 were made possible, courtesy of Night Dive Studios. The thing is though, ever since 2008 we've never really had a truly new Turok game. But you know what? It's always good to stay positive. After all, plenty of dead franchises have come back from the dead, and if there's a franchise out there that still has a chance to be relevant again, Turok is definitely that franchise. Thank you all for watching the video. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you dislike it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.